Here we go.
Hey Ed,
Hello. Hi. Good evening, Drake. How are
good. Good evening. How are you
you? I'm
doing?
doing all right. I'm just adjusting. Last,
Okay, I did too.
there you go. Good, because last week you kept somehow we kept
Yeah,
hiding your face.
yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, I was told the same thing.
We
So
we want.
this week I decided to do this too. Just put it in a place and like that.
I got a cheap little easel type of thing, so it's just sitting nicely there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, all right. So how are you?
I'm
Since
good. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I'm ready for some music talk this evening. I got a full cup of coffee, so
Yeah,
I'm ready to go. It was fun last week talking about Kiss, and actually some stuff we didn't talk about, but we'll probably do that in the future. You have
yeah.
something else in mind for the evening, right?
We'll get back to that. Yeah, this week we both discussed and agreed that we could do live discussion on the Ramones, and even another thing too we'll do is we're gonna do our own album ranking of the band's discography later on too.
Yeah, yeah. You know, just a few minutes ago, I sat down and made out a list. It was pretty easy to do.
Yeah,
When
I did
I
the same thing.
once I had all the titles laid out in front of me, I said, okay, and there was a couple parts where I wanted to switch it around a little bit, but we'll get to that
Yeah,
after.
yeah, we'll get to that.
All right. How do you want to start out? We're the Ramones. There's so much to talk about.
Yeah, and they're definitely a great band to talk about. And how about you start? How did you get into the band?
Well, I had first, I'm not sure if I heard of them before I actually heard them. My memory is actually hearing them for the first time on a college radio station here in New Haven. I had made a reference to that in our conversation last week.
Yeah.
It came up WNHU 88.7, which is from the University of New Haven.
Mhm.
So this would have been, I'm thinking 1977. This is what I'm thinking. I was still in grade school, but in the later, probably seventh grade. And by this time, I had discovered college radio and realized that they were playing things that you didn't hear on the mainstream, rock stations. And that was interesting. So, I got turned on to a lot of things through that. But anyway, I remember hearing the Ramones for the first time. And it was part of a show that was, I think it was just new music, new rock at that time. It wasn't like a punk show.
Mhm.
Punk wasn't this huge movement outside of, New York City or London. So anyway, I think, and I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know exactly what song I heard that was the first Ramones tune. I'm thinking it might have been from the first album, either the first album or the second album, Leave Home. It was one of those two, and I just remember it grabbed my attention, whatever it was, because in 1977, I was a fan of hard rock and starting to get into metal,
Mhm.
like last talk, and I was into Kiss. I liked Aerosmith, Cheap Trick, Ted Nugent, whatever, big guitar rock, you know, and that comes from a little bit of a different musical zone. What the Ramones are doing, that came from someplace else. But anyway, so I'm hearing this, and the big difference was, first of all, the speed. The tempo of which these songs are being played. I'm like, whoa, because I don't even think I had heard Motorhead at that point yet. 1977, yeah, Motorhead was still maybe a little bit known in England, but not here in
Yeah.
stateside. So, and the sound of the guitars appealed to me. That just distorted fuzz guitar tone. But what
Yeah.
was remarkable that there was no guitar solos. All those other bands I mentioned, there's lead guitar. And that was the big thing. And the appeal of bands like I was into Led Zeppelin, of course. Deep Purple. This is music that's above and beyond just rock and roll. But now here's the Ramones doing the exact opposite of that. It's all stripped down and it's
Yeah.
short. 2-minute song, and I'm like, whoa, what's that? And they were getting more airplay on that station, and then I started to read about them in some of the like local music newspapers, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Aware of them. I was, again, grade school, going into high school. I was not old enough to get into bars, so I would see this name, Ramones. They'd come to New Haven every, twice a year or whatever. But that was it. That was, like I say, I was in like 7th grade, hearing them on the radio, college radio, and it was a wow moment. I was really struck by the fact that they were just doing this, in the face of guitar heroics. That's what people were talking about back then.
Yeah.
Who's the hot players and everything, and Frank Marino, Rick Derringer, people I mentioned. And then here comes the Ramones. I was like, wow, no guitar solos. And then the lyrics are like ridiculous,
Yeah.
but they're genius ridiculous. So here's, they're singing about things like what? Sniffing glue?
Yeah. And Carbona and
you knew that was back then. You knew about it, but wow, someone's singing about that. Pinheads. What's
yeah, Cretans.
Right, exactly. And it was just, to me, that pulled me in, and I really never really got into punk rock until much later. It was like almost like the Ramones was all I needed for punk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Great music that came out of New York City and that CBGB scene. I caught up with it later on.
Yeah.
But at that time, it's like, oh, okay, this is punk rock. This is Ramones. Yeah, I'm into it. So that was my experience. Yeah, I know. How about you?
That's awesome. Yeah. How I got into them was, of course, I wasn't there in the 70s or 80s, but as we all know, I was born in 2000. But I got into them pretty much when I was pretty much around the first time I heard Kiss and AC/DC, like when I was 3, 4 years old, so around 2003 to 4. And I heard them in my dad's car, like when he would take me with him to go for drives, and I'd be in the back seat, and he would play all this music, and then I remember hearing the Ramones, and I was instantly hooked. Like I think that one of the first songs I heard was Commando.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, that song just grabbed my attention, and I loved it. And I remember, and then I heard their cover of Surfin' Bird and I Don't Care, which that's still my favorite Ramones song to this day. And then I heard Beat on the Brat, Judy's a Punk, so many of that early stuff. And then I was immediately grabbed onto it, and I remember thinking too, because at that time I knew of Kiss, AC/DC, Van Halen, Black Sabbath, and all that stuff. And I remember thinking the Ramones, like, wow, this is pretty different than all this other stuff I love. Like I thought the same. There was no guitar solos. The songs are so fast, and the guitar, and then the production's very raw, and the lyrics are humorous. And I remember like thinking, wow, this is something else for sure, but so great. And yeah, I've been a big Ramones fan pretty much ever since, and I've always had a great, strong love for them, and they're my top 5 favorite bands of all time.
Yeah. It's interesting, despite our age difference, even though we discovered the band at different points in the band's timeline, our reactions were the same.
Yeah.
And we were both listening to similar sounding music, and the Ramones had stood out. So that's a very interesting, the fact that and a lot of people were probably, felt the same way hearing it.
Yeah.
But interesting, like what we're talking about, we were hard rockers getting into metal, and then we heard the Ramones, and we embraced that as part of our listening. But, back then, music was so, with the fans, it was so tribal. You had the metalheads, they didn't like the punks. You know, they didn't understand. You know, because of that whole, you know, we're gonna not play guitar solos. You know, punk rock wasn't necessarily, you know, it was simple, stripped down rock and roll, where a lot of hard rock and metal, you know, there was a particular musicality behind it. You know, again, you know, guitar solos and, you know, really good drummers with excellent chops and all of that. But then there was like a cultural thing. It's like back then, the metalheads and the punks, you know, they didn't necessarily get along. That didn't really change until later on. So it was
Yeah.
kind of unusual, you know, to find people that were into metal that also liked punk rock, you know, because it was like, wow, Ramones, how could you like that? Where's the solos? You got to listen to Yngwie Malmsteen or whatever. Yeah. Why can't you listen to both? You know,
nothing wrong with both. Come on.
You know, some people, it's like you're joining a gang. If you're into a band or something, you know, it's like you can't listen to that, or, you know, why deprive yourself of just a variety of music? But anyway, that's a whole other discussion. But yeah, interesting. We both got the same impressions with them.
Yeah. And do you remember that what you first owned by them?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't remember what the first Ramones album I bought was. I think, wow. I honestly, I think it was Leave Home. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it was Leave Home. But you know, at the time, I was really more into the metal stuff. So I was more into like completing my Black Sabbath collection and all that. So I never really. I used to like if somebody had a Ramones, you know, I would tape it, you know, onto cassette. So I built up some cassettes that way. I was spending my money more on like metal records, you know, in the early 80s and, you know, through the 80s. So it wasn't until later when everything came out on CD that I caught up with, you know, having an actual discography from them. But I'm going to say Leave Home. That makes a lot of sense. Either that or Road to Ruin. Yeah, either one of those two was the first album that I had. So, yeah, my, that's kind of a vague memory for some reason. It's probably just because I was more into a different area of music.
Yeah, yeah. For me too, I don't really remember what specific first one I owned as well, but I remember I did have Ramones Mania, that compilation from 1988, which was a great introduction. Like it has, from the first album up till Halfway to Sanity, and it's a great representation. And I remember I owned one of that was one of the first ones I owned. And I also remember I still own. This was one of the first things I owned, the Weird Tales of the Ramones box set.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this came out I think to like 2005. So, and it has 3 discs and 85 songs, and it spans their whole career as well, and even it has a bonus disc 4, which is the Lifestyles of the Ramones documentary.
Oh,
From 1990, I believe, and it has a lot of the music videos on it and interviews. So,
well, hold on to that because that's no longer in production. I think, yeah, that's out of print.
yeah, it's out of print.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't have that. That's a great collectible to have. It's, you know, just the package itself, but the fact that, you know, it's not something that's going to be reproduced again. So
Yeah.
good collectible to have.
Mm-hmm. Oh, damn it. One of the discs fell out. But it's good packaging. There's a good big comic book in here, and it has 3D glasses. And yeah, it was one of the first things I owned from the band. And it was also a great introduction. And
a good entry point, and you know, a great collection, a great package.
mm-hmm. And then I remember I also owned this one as well, which I also still have. the Loud Fast Ramones, their Toughest Hits comp.
Oh yeah, I have that
Yeah,
one.
yeah, this is a really good one too. It was also curated by Johnny Ramone himself. He picked the track listing and the selections of the songs.
And the fact that they have a live disc in there.
Yeah, the 50,000 copies of it came with a live CD from the Too Tough to Die tour. I think it was a show from London, and
With Richie.
it had Richie. It had Richie, but sadly mine is only the single disc one. I don't have the 2 disc,
Oh,
but
oh boy. Yeah,
yeah,
I have.
I'm still on the lookout for that 2 disc one because it's also another collectible to have because only 50,000 of them had it. But
That's
yeah,
interesting. I didn't know that statistic, and I'm lucky because when I bought that, I did not buy it when it first came out. So sometimes limited run albums, there may be a couple laying around somewhere,
yeah,
and buy it after the fact. So okay, that's good to know. I lucked out. I just assumed all of them had the second disc in it. Ah, well, I
yeah,
learned something tonight, and you know, that's great.
yeah. I'm still every time I'm on eBay and I'm still on the lookout for it because I want to own that too because that's the only I think official released recording that of Richie official by the band too, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, that's right, because he did, studio work with them, but there's nothing officially. Yeah, when you think about the live albums that they put out, none of them have Richie. It's either Tommy or Marky.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but so that's okay. That's interesting to know that was a limited run. All right.
Yeah, and that seat and
But
that live disc too has some rare songs on it. Like I think Smash You is on it, and a live version of Howlin' at the Moon, Sha La La, which is great live.
you know
And
what? Hold that thought. It's right behind me in my CD racks. Let me go grab it.
oh, okay,
And here we are. Yep.
cool.
Two, two. Okay, so let me see here. Okay, the bonus disc. Do
Yeah,
you remember Rock and Roll Radio, Psychotherapy, Susie is a Headbanger, Too Tough to Die, Smash You, Chinese Rock, Howling at the Moon, and I Don't Want to Go Down to the Basement. So, yeah, that's
8 songs.
that's the second disc.
It's kind of like a live EP because I'm sure too. It's I don't even think it's probably not even over 20 minutes long. It's only 8 songs, and even by then they're playing so fast live.
Yeah, I don't think it's more than a half hour. Maybe
Yeah,
something. I haven't listened to it in a while, but I'm going to leave this out. Probably give it a play later on.
yeah.
So, yeah,
I'm still I still want to own that one day. I'm still always gonna look out for it on eBay.
look out for it. If I don't know what you have up there for the record stores, any used record stores. I'm always perusing. The bins, looking for
Yeah,
just in case something that slipped through my fingers years ago happens to pop up.
there's a really good store up called Revolver. It's up here at Edmonton at there's actually 2 of them. There's one at Bonnie Doon Mall and Westmount Mall, and it's a really good place. They have lots of new and used CDs and even vinyls and cassettes and everything. It's a really good store, and I always like to go there a lot.
Yeah, yeah, good. Yeah, I'm still a fan of independent record stores, and
Yeah.
I'm still buying. And every now and then, something surprises you. It's like, whoa, that's out of,
Yeah. And it's always great too when they're fairly priced.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, what direction you want to go in?
Um, why don't we discuss What was your first impression of when you heard the band live for the first time?
Wow. Well, hearing them live the first time, it was actually the only time. I only saw the Ramones once, and my impression was, just like the first time I heard them on the radio. Wow. Because it was a blast of energy. And here's a band I loved. I knew all the songs. Now, when I saw them, it was Toad's Place, New Haven, 1989. It was either early in 89, like February, or it was later, like November or December. And now the reason it's important, okay, they played 2 shows that year. The earliest show, like if it was February or March, whatever, Dee Dee was still in the band.
Yeah.
When they came back for the end of the year, CJ was in the band, and I can't remember exactly. All I remember was that it was very cold outside, and it was extremely hot inside because there was so many people. They sold out Toad's Place, so it was jam packed, and there was just so much energy in there. It was hot. It really was. And I'm a short guy, so it was standing room, and there's all these people taller than me. All I could really see, I could see Joey because he was taller. He's the tallest Ramone. And I
Yeah.
could see Marky because he was on a drum riser. I saw like the very top of like Johnny's head. And I'm not quite sure whose top of the head I saw on the other side of the stage. Was it Dee Dee or was it CJ? I have a feeling it was CJ.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that's who I saw because my sight line, and it was that jam packed. I mean, it was, and then I remember moving over to the side of the room, and there were these benches.
Yeah.
So what I was doing was sitting on the back, like the back of the bench itself, so I was able to see a little bit better above the crowd. In my memory, again, I distinctly remember Joey and Marky because they were the most visible on that stage. And it was, so I think I was CJ. So my impression, I was just so taken with the whole thing. I'm like, wow, I finally got to see these guys. And musically, it was just everything I expected. It was loud and tight, and it was a great set list, and I enjoyed it. I worked up a sweat just sitting there. It was so. Um, and here's the thing: the Ramones came to New Haven so many times, and I asked myself, why did I only go once? It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know. So I'm just lucky that I did see them the one time, and I always say, why once? They're always here. I mean, I would have loved to have seen them multiple times. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I heard that with some other people too, like because it's like it seemed like a common thing like back then because of course the Ramones toured nonstop 22 years, and I heard like some said that too, like they regretted not seeing them live more or at all because they were always back and always there, and then I think one of them said that, oh, I'll go see them next time, and then of
That's
course,
exactly
yeah,
it. Because when you get the band to just pass through
yeah,
town every 6 months, they're like, oh, well, I'll catch them next time. And then you
yeah,
say that you know it's ridiculous. Oh, please, we could do a show about rock and roll regrets, bands
yeah.
I didn't for stupid reasons.
I have I have like a few of those too, so
Yeah. Oh, I'll make a note of that. That'll be a good conversation someday.
yeah,
uh,
regrets on who we didn't see live or what album we didn't buy or any of that
yeah,
stuff.
that, buy certain albums, and then you find out, oh, it's out of
It's
print. You didn't.
out of print now. Yeah, it's too late.
Someone
It's
wants
like,
$5
damn it.
on eBay. So yeah, Ramones, that was my impression. Now, have you seen them live?
No,
Oh,
of course
you
not.
never. Oh no, that's right. Because they said adios in '96.
96, yeah, 4 years before I was born.
Right.
I
Yeah.
was I
Right.
was 4 years too late, sadly. But
Oh, okay.
then again, that's another regret. I regret not being born earlier so I can see them.
I mean, you have no control over that.
Right? Exactly. But when I heard them live, I think I couldn't remember which one was first. Like of albums I heard them live on. I remember I heard It's Alive and Loco
Yeah.
Live both early, and then I remember
Wait,
live
what's
I
the
was
second?
thinking
What's the
what's
second one? Logo Live.
Loco Live, yeah,
Oh yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I remember hearing this It's Alive in the car too. Like I remember hearing the version of You're Gonna Kill That Girl and I Don't Care and Commando and all that. And I pretty much had the same impression I first heard. And I was like, wow, like even live they're so furious and raw and fast, and even that, like I remember thinking, wow, they sound faster live than they are in the studio.
Yeah. That.
Yeah. And I remember thinking like, and I was thinking too, like live, they don't even sound any different. They sound the same on It's Alive and even Local Live. And I remember another one I heard too was uh, this one, NYC 1978, the Palladium show from January of 78.
Yep. That's in my collection.
Yeah. This one too, I remember hearing, and it's because it's a soundboard recording too. It's where It's Alive was more maybe polished, but this one was more raw off the soundboard.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking the audio on this one was more in your face a little bit, maybe a little more than It's Alive, but
Yeah.
I felt that these two are a perfect representation of hearing the Ramones live, like at their peak. Like if you want, like especially if you want to show someone the Ramones live, or if they want to hear them live, I think grab either one of these, then you're set, and you're in for a ride,
Okay.
pretty much.
It's Alive. That was originally only available as an import. It never
Yeah.
got issued on the domestic Sire. It was only on Sire Records overseas. I think in England.
England, yeah, I think Europe, yeah.
Yeah, in Europe. And I first heard that in college. Somebody had a copy of it. And I remember we were just, sitting in the dorm room listening to it. And I'm like, this is awesome. This is a great live album. There's like 100 songs on this thing or whatever. And it was just, yeah. And that live album, it just sums up everything you need to hear with that original lineup that included Tommy. That's a great document. That's the original band. They were better appreciated in England in the very beginning
Yeah.
than the United States. And that's a document of it, and that was a classic because again, it was only available as an import vinyl for so long, and it wasn't.
Yeah. So I think it wasn't until I think mid '90s, because actually mine is a U.S. copy of it, and it says on the back, first released in 1979 and first U.S. release 1995. So it took till 95 for it to finally get an official release here in North America.
Yeah, I think I have the version you have.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's what I have. Yeah, and I remember that. Just memories of sitting in someone's dorm room, sitting around drinking beers and listening to that album, and just really, really enjoying it. And that was good. When I went to college, it was fun. to meet other Ramones fans. You just talking to people and talking about, oh yeah, I'm into the Ramones. Oh, well, cool. Because really, I mean, I entered college in '82.
Yeah.
So, they weren't. I mean, the Ramones were never this. Well, they weren't like today. We made a reference to this last week. You see Ramones T-shirts all over the place.
Yeah, you go to like Walmart or Hot Topic, you'll see their T-shirts. You'll see that logo and their name. Like,
yeah,
it's everywhere now. And even sadly, with most people, they wear it as a fashion statement to look cool. It's like it's a legendary band. There's great music there. You're missing out, but
they've definitely sold more T-shirts than records, unfortunately. But but my whole point was back then. It was like, oh, all right, you're kind of hip.
Yeah.
You like the Ramones.
Even in my thing growing up, I never knew much people who were as a big a Ramones fan as I am. Like, I think the only, like, especially for my family, the only Ramones hardcore guy in my family that's like me was really my dad and my brother, and then a cousin or two of mine, and then that's really it. No one else is. I don't see the love for Ramones there, or maybe they do, but they don't talk about it much. So I always, whenever I saw someone else loves the Ramones, I'm like, right on, man.
That's my case with the music that I've always liked, where I was always the only one in my family. And I mean, obviously, my parents, they weren't into rock and roll or anything like that, but I'm talking about cousins, for instance. Nobody really stepped outside of the box, musically, meaning, commercial radio satisfied them.
Yeah.
Whereas I liked that, but I wanted more, So nobody else in my family, none of my cousins, nobody was into Black Sabbath or, I had a cousin a couple of my cousins were into Kiss, but that's pretty much it. As we got older, they didn't really expand, their 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 listening, So I was always, and even among my like neighborhood friends, we all liked certain things, but then I was always the only one that would take the left turn and be into something that none of these other people were into,
Yeah.
And that's something that may have been punk or metal oriented, usually metal, because that's what I was back in the 80s, that was the big for me, But yeah, it wasn't until I got to college that I met other Ramones fans. Yeah.
And even back then, like, they had that underground thing to them, right? And that cult, because of course today they're much more known and appreciated, but back then, like,
exactly,
it seemed like it was a small type of group or thing. Yeah. Like, if you knew someone that loves the Ramones, it seemed rare to see and find for the time.
Yeah, it was. You didn't see if you saw a Ramones T-shirt, anywhere between the late '70s and mid '80s. I mean, you knew that person was into the band.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, they were a fun group. I mean, any group of fans, they tend to find each other and everything. But as you're saying, yeah, Ramones were always kind of underground. The only time they got radio airplay, I mean, when Road to Ruin came out and I Want to Be Sedated was released as a single, that got a lot of radio airplay. And then I remember when End of the Century came out. Do you remember Rock and Roll Radio was getting some airplay?
Yeah.
But that was really the only time I remember the Ramones getting commercial. I should have specified on the commercial rock station. Obviously, the college stations were playing whatever from the Ramones, the deeper cuts, and I don't think they ever, in their time, I think that was almost like the peak. for them if you're just going by, radio airplay and everything. Because look at how well they did in South America.
Yeah,
They
and
played to
Argentina, Brazil, Chile.
tens of thousands of people. And here in the United States of America, selling out Toad's Place was like, that was the business that they were doing. And when I say Toad's Place, I'm talking about other similar clubs, that hold like between 700 and 1,000. Sometimes they play like a 2,000 seater or whatever.
Yeah.
But they never. I think the only exception, obviously, when they were an opening band, and going on tours with people like Black Sabbath, they were exposed to a larger audience. The Us,
more mainstream crowds.
yeah, the Us Festival in 1983. That's the biggest crowd they ever played to in the United States or North America, for that matter.
Yeah, that was a huge festival.
That was a huge.
The same day they were on, they had the Police and Talking Heads, the B-52s,
Yeah.
so many other groups. I think they were second on the bill that day.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that whole set of theirs too was filmed, and most of it's on the It's Alive DVD.
Yeah, I have that, and that's
I have it too.
It's a fun show to watch. They're up there. It's like 110 got leather jackets on.
Yeah. And Joey never took his off at all, so I bet he was hot.
Guys did. Like right after the first song, Joey left his on, but Joey gets into a zone, and
Yeah.
He just does his thing.
Yeah. Speaking of which, there's rarely any shows, I think, where Joey ever took his jacket off. He always kept it on mainly throughout their career. I think there's one show where I know he did take it off was for that Finland show in 1988.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
Other than that, I don't think he ever took it off. I think it was more common for him to always have his on throughout all the shows.
Yeah, I could picture that footage, right? He had like a striped shirt on.
Yeah, he had a striped shirt on at that show.
No jacket. Yeah. That was an interesting we were talking about, last week, Kiss, Ramones, they're both New York bands, and, just the visual thing, the Ramones, punk bands around that time, they didn't really necessarily have a uniform, but the Ramones was like really the only punk band that actually, we're all going to dress the same, so there was that
the
visual
jackets and the jeans and the sneakers. Yeah. It's a really good uniform and image, I feel.
Yeah, it was very New York.
Yeah.
It was definitely very New York, like that street gang type of image.
Yeah, the street type. Yeah.
Well, I mean, punk is music from the street in the sense that, I'm sure you've read, biographies of the Ramones and like their backgrounds, and a lot of people in the punk scene, they didn't have easy lives growing up, and they spent a lot of time on the streets, and there's that whole do-it-yourself ethic from punk rock, and that's where the rawness comes from too. There's raw emotion behind it, so there's definitely sociology behind it, where art and why things are the way they are. It's people that make the art.
Yeah.
And
even early on, like in the early days, they had like their jeans, like they would become ripped after a while and worn out, and even you see that on like even on Rocket to Russia, they all have rips on their jeans on that album cover. It wasn't until a little later that they got able to afford more jeans, and they never had rips on them anymore.
But I'm not sure if the rips were intentional or not. It's very possible, because it's like, well, no, you're punk. You don't care if your pants are ripped. You're going to wear them anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I actually used to wonder if they were intentional. Then I seen them later on, like, man, probably not. They got new jeans, fresher.
Yeah, jeans long enough, they're going to get worn out. And, you know, if you're doing any kind of like work or something and you're on your knees and they wear out, you know.
Yeah.
And they didn't come from money. So they weren't out buying new pairs of jeans, you know, they wore what they owned. You know, John and Dee Dee worked construction. No, Johnny worked construction. And that's right.
He was, yeah.
Right. You know, but Johnny was a construction worker, so you know you're gonna wear out some jeans that way. That's for sure.
Yeah. And going back to It's Alive, I have right here the 40th anniversary deluxe edition box set.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah.
Now,
it's the only one of the 40th anniversary sets that I do own, and it's really great. I remember I got it for Christmas in 2019, and it comes with 4 discs and 4 CDs, and there's a nice shot of them live. I think this was maybe early 77 because Johnny still has the blue Mo's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's terrific.
Yeah, that's a good shot, and it's a rare one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And opens like a gatefold.
Beautiful.
Great shot.
So what? In addition to the original album, what are the additional discs?
The discs are, so disc 1 is the original album. It's the New Year's Eve show, and it's remastered. And then disc 2 and the other 3 discs are unreleased. Disc 2 is the show from December 28th, 77, and it's the same set list, but the December 28th show has I Can't Give You Anything instead of Havana Affair.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's great. And disc 3 is the December 29th show, and it still has I Can't Give You Anything, and it's a great show again. And then disc 4 is the December 30th show, and this one has a Havana Affair on it. This is where they took out I Can't Give You Anything and replaced it. And then the 3 shows too don't have Judy Is a Punk at all, so they're all 27 song set lists, where the London show has Judy's a Punk, and it made it 28 songs.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're all great shows. They're very raw, and the other 3 shows too were in consideration to be It's Alive, but of course they felt the New Year's Eve show was the best one, and
yeah,
it's great to have because they were never released before it, and it's a great set.
Yeah, definitely.
And it even comes with a big book too, with lots of liner notes and info.
Nice.
Huge, yeah. And then the back has a nice shot of the original lineup.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, I'm a big fan of liner notes. I just love to read about the recordings. You know, that's what's good about a lot of these resets and reissues. You know, information, essay.
And a lot of it was written by Ed Stasium too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
he helped put this set together, and even the other 40th ones he helped do too.
Okay. Yeah.
I sadly don't own the other ones, but I hope to get them one day because they're all great.
Yeah. That's a good set to have, though. Definitely.
Yeah. So should we get into the ranking now?
Sure. Whatever you want to do. Now, how do you want to do this? Do you want to do like your ranking, and then like for instance, how do you want to do? Do we want to go from the lowest?
Yeah, we can start at 14 and go to the 1, and even as we go along, we could talk about the album too.
Yeah. How about this? Okay, you're gonna start, and you'll tell me what your number 14 is, and we'll talk about it, and then I'll tell you what my number 14 is, and then we'll just go down that way.
Yeah, that's the way. Yeah,
we'll do it that. All right. So Ramones put out 14 studio recordings, and we're going to give you our ratings, and Drake is going to go first.
Yep. I'm going to go first, and here is my number 4. Here's my number 14. I'm sure this is pretty common in probably most other fans' list. And I'll just say it right now, the Ramones for me don't really have bad albums. There's some that are better than others, but of course there's always going to be the weakest ones and the least favorites. So, and like I said, my number 14 is mostly common that I see, but my number 14 is Acid Eaters from 1994. And of course it's their covers album, and yeah, I'm not it's never been one I listen to much. It's got some good covers. Like I like the cover of Out of Time. I think that's a great version, and Joey does a great vocal performance on it. And I also like the CCR cover they did of Have You Ever Seen the Rain, and Can't Seem to Make You Mine I really like as well. Another great Joey vocal. But other than that, it's not really one I pull out much or listen to much. But whenever I listen to it, it's it's always an interesting listen. And this one too has a bonus track on it called Surfing Safari, their cover of that. I don't think that was on the American one, or I think it was a bonus track I think on the Japan version, but yeah, it's on this reissue. And
I'd have to take a look
yeah,
and see which one I have.
yeah,
Yeah, I gotta take a look at that. That album always reminds me of, and you've seen it, I'm sure, because it's on the Ramones Raw DVD.
yeah,
Uh, the Ramones were on Space Ghost, Coast to Coast.
yeah. I was gonna mention that actually. I was gonna.
And they were that album,
Yeah,
and John explains, well, yeah, it's a bunch of songs that were recorded, some from 1963, and it's Space, and it's just coming out now.
Now coming out. They just all laugh.
Sounds like something I would say, and that always cracked me up. So, yeah, there's some. I mean, okay, that was your number 14.
Yeah.
Before I tell you what my 14 is, that was my number 13.
Okay.
Because I thought that album was better than the album that I picked for number 14. But before we talk about that, just my thoughts on Acid Eaters. I'm not a big fan of covers per se. Every now and then, a cover is great. I do have to say that the Ramones do play good covers. I mean, they have played covers throughout their career.
Yeah.
To do a full album, it's definitely a curiosity. How are the Ramones going to approach these songs? Now, it's a studio project, so one of the ways to approach these songs is with guest musicians. In the studio, you could do whatever you want. So I think the album, it's successful in that it sounds. They're good versions. They're good versions. But like you, it is not a CD of the Ramones that I necessarily grab as a first choice. It's like every now and then listen to it, like, yeah, okay, this is cool. But it's not something that I'm going to be grabbing every few weeks or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said about your covers earlier, like throughout their career, they did a lot of good ones and they made it their own. Like, example is California Sun, like that became an essential one of theirs and live staple, and even Surfing Bird.
Yeah, absolutely.
They made it their own, and Needles and Pins and Let's Dance, Do You Want to Dance? So many great ones. But like, yeah, as a full album, it's pretty tough to see what they can do. But
I see a comment from Dorothy said how she likes how the Ramones gave the songs their own touch, and definitely
I agree. Yeah, for sure.
To me, give it your own personality, your own stamp, your own approach to it. And that's what the Ramones did. I mean, they definitely, if you didn't hear the original, you'd think, oh, wow, good original. These are good Ramones songs,
Yeah.
And so the album succeeds in that regard. But again, the other 13 albums are what you'd let someone listen to if you'd say, well, let me turn me on to some Ramones. You're not going to pull out Acid Eaters, not, So, all right. So here's was your number 14, my number 13. So, my number 14 was Subterranean Jungle.
Okay.
That is Marky's last album, and he only plays on a couple of tracks. He was having personal issues. Um, he got tossed during the recording of that album. And even, it doesn't even matter who was drumming on that album, the drum sound is awful. And the song selection, originals, and there's some covers on there too, I think. It seemed like they were just kind of treading water. They were just doing the Ramones thing to get an album out. There was turmoil behind the scenes with Marky's drinking issue, so that's obviously a distraction, and that things like that show up in the work. And I always thought that Subterranean was, again, not a terrible album. There's some, good moments on there, but I think overall the sound and drum sound is so bad. I just, it bothers me, and yeah, it's a weak. I think it's a weak spot, a weak link in the chain of Ramones releases. So, but that's all I really have to say about that.
Nice. Yeah, that's not interesting. I like. I'm not going to tell you where I've put that in my list, but I've always had a soft spot for that album too, as far as the songs goes. But I do agree, like the drum sound could have been better. Like it wasn't, and that was around the time, like that's '83,
Yeah.
right? Like that's when drum machines were coming in and electronic drums, and I think
that's true. But the other thing that was happening to acoustic drums, there was a way to add a particular kind of reverb on the snare drums, and it would give this tight, but you could definitely tell like an amplified, a louder drum hit, a brighter sound. It almost sounded electronic. So that was another sound that was very popular around that time. And yeah, sometimes the Ramones, whoever was producing the album, would experiment with different sounds, and it did not work with the Ramones.
Like I think it's Richie Glenn Colokin and Richie Cordell, I think, produced it. I think they produced Joan Jett's "I Love Rock and Roll," and I can't remember what else they produced, but yeah, they must have been going for that type of.
Well, it would have been better if they made it sound like the Joan Jett album.
Yeah.
I mean, they got it better. But again, who knows? Different circumstances, different studio. But yes, yeah, I didn't even remember who they were.
Yeah, I didn't even know that too till I read that. I was like, because they were like unknown producers.
Right.
I felt. But.
So I had rated, Acid Eaters over that one because Acid Eaters just benefits from a better overall sound. It just sounds more, cohesive. But again, those two are at the bottom of my list, 13 and 14. So okay, so we have to get your number 13.
13, yeah.
Yes.
So my number 13 is another one that, again, I never rarely reach for when I listen to the Ramones, but it's my number 13 is Brain Drain from 1989. It's just, Dee Dee's last album with the band, and I think this one was produced by Bill Laswell and even John Law, and it's got great moments. Like it opens up strong with "I Believe in Miracles," and I love "Punishment Fits the Crime," which Dee Dee sang, and "Pet Sematary," of course, is on here, which became a classic and a very well-known Ramones song. And "Merry Christmas, I Don't Want to Fight Tonight's also on here. And then there's another song I really like called "Can't Get You Out of My Mind," which is another great Joey performance. And that song actually was recorded and written during the Pleasant Dreams era. If you buy the expanded edition of Pleasant Dreams, there's a version of it on there in the bonus tracks. But that's really all I like on here. The rest, like their cover of Palisades Park, I wasn't the biggest fan of. Learn to Listen, All Screwed Up, some filler, but again, yeah, that's my number 13. Just another one I don't reach for much, but it's got great songs.
That higher up on my list, and I'll let you know when we get
Yeah.
there. But songs you mentioned are fabulous songs, and it's probably why it's higher up on my list is because of those songs that you mentioned. Those are definitely the highlights for me. Um, and yeah, produced by Bill Laswell. Do you know who he is?
I, I have never heard of him besides knowing he
Okay.
produced the album, honestly.
I am a huge fan of Bill Laswell. He's a bass player, and
Oh,
he's a
okay.
yeah, and he all right. The biggest projects that he produced he produced an Iggy Pop album, and I can't remember which one it is now. He produced Motorhead's Orgasmatron.
Oh,
He produced Public Image's album, when it's simply called Album. Um, he's also produced, and now I'm drawing a blank. He's one of my favorites. But he plays bass. He's New York City based. He had a group called Material. He also has put together a lot of musicians from around the world and did a lot of mixing and matching. He got involved in producing funk albums, and I mean, Whitney Houston sang on an early Material album before she became a superstar. You know, I think it was like one or two tracks. Um, so um, he's also very instrumental in American dub music, the dub that's not the Jamaican dub out of reggae. A lot of stuff that crosses over with electronic music. So yeah, Laswell. Um, Listening to that album, what Laswell got out of it was just a big sound. There's nothing on there that really sounds like a Bill Laswell technique. There's certain things that he does in the studio that I instantly know about, but there wasn't much of that. It seems like he was just getting. Uh, there's a different sound, you know. I can't describe when I say a different sound. Um, I think it's just a studio thing, like the studio that they used.
yeah.
But that's really the only thing that Laswell, you know, there's nothing there. He didn't turn it into like a dub album and bring in master musicians from Jajuka in there or something, you know. So, but anyway, that's higher up on my list, and we'll get to that later.
Okay.
So, so that's what 14 and 13.
Yeah, 13. That's my 13, and we'll head to 12 now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my number 12 is 1986's Animal Boy, and like I said, we're getting higher now. So sometimes when I listen to when I want to listen to a more like the word obscure album, or unknown, more unknown album, I'll listen to this now and then. I'll pull it out because this album, the production I feel though could have been better, but it's produced by John Beauvoir from the Plasmatics. I hope I'm saying his name right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It opens up strong with Somebody Put Something in My Drink, which is written by Richie Ramone, and then the title track is a great song, and Love Kills, written by Dee Dee, and it's written about Sid and Nancy.
Yeah.
It's a great song, became a live staple too for a while, and then there's another song like She Belongs to Me, a really good ballad, and a very synthesizer heavy ballad. Like I think if that song was released by like say Bryan Adams, I think that would have been a big hit immediately.
Yeah.
And it's a great song, I feel. And then of course there's Bonzo Goes to Bitburg, My Brain is Hanging Upside Down, which is of course about Ronald Reagan, and very political song, but it became a classic as well, and it's a great song. And Then there's Eat That Rat, like a hardcore, very hardcore song, which actually for this tour opened most of the shows for that tour. They didn't open with Durango 95. And a great song, and Something to Believe In closes the album, which if you've seen the video, it's like the Ramones' version of like We Are the World in a way, like Ramones Aid, and they got guest
Yep.
people in the videos and singers, and it's a great song. It's fun, and yeah, Animal Boy, my number 12, I really like it. But I think the production could have been better, but it's a good album. That's my number 12.
Well, all the good things you said about it is the reason why it ranks higher on my list. My number 12, Mondo Bizarro. And what's interesting is I can't even tell you anything about Mondo Bizarro. I have it, but when I made up this list, I even said to myself, I don't remember what songs are on. Now, do you have all the CDs by your side that you can grab them?
Yeah, I got him all here. Yeah.
Okay,
And,
pull up.
the other thing is Mondo's higher on my list too.
Oh, okay.
So, but on Mondo, there's Censor Shit, The Job That Ate My Brain, Poison Heart, Anxiety, Strength to Endure, It's Gonna Be All Right, and Take It As It Comes, the Doors cover, Main Man, Tomorrow She Goes Away, I Won't Let It Happen, Cabby's on Crack, Heidi Is a Head Case, and Touring.
You know,
That's the
I
whole
may
album.
I may have to rank that a little higher than number 12. There's some songs on there that I absolutely love. So I'm going to have to, yeah, all right. I ranked it at number 12, but I'm just going to put a little star next to my little list here. I may, by the end of this conversation, I may find a higher place for it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's where we're at. So now we're at number 11.
Yeah, number 11.
All right, Drake, what is your number
11? My number 11 is 1987's Halfway to Sanity.
All right.
Yeah. And that album cover, too, was shot in New York City's Chinatown.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've probably been by there, but have no idea that was the place where they shot the photograph.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I believe, Canal Street, which is in the main drag through Chinatown. And, there's a lot of course, Chinese restaurants, a lot of shops. You can do a lot of shopping in Chinatown. And I always have this memory of Chinatown. There's a lot of electronic stores selling all of audio and visual stuff. And there would be several of these stores, and they all have window displays with like everything turned on, So there's bright lights and noise and all these crazy laser sounds and whatnot, and all kinds of science fiction toys, and just amazing. So I always, whenever I see that album cover, I always I just think of Canal Street there. So I could have walked right by there, but I'm not sure exactly which which door.
Going to New York is a bucket list of mine because I want to go there someday. Because not only because it's a great iconic city, but of course bands we love came from there. Of course, Kiss and Ramones.
Oh yeah,
that whole CBGB scene, the New York Dolls and Television, Blondie, and
oh, absolutely. If you ever have the opportunity to go to New York, I can hop on a train here in New Haven and get there in 90 minutes. And I could actually be a tour guide. It's been a while since I've been actually in Manhattan, but I used to go in the 90s, and I got to know the city pretty well. But it isn't, I mean, I'll tell you now, it isn't what it used to be as far as a center of musical activity. I mean, it's still Broadway shows and other arts. There's great art museums and whatnot. Actually, there's 5 boroughs, 5 major sections of New York City. Manhattan used to be where all this great stuff came out of. Now it's Brooklyn. What happened was when Manhattan became expensive to live, Brooklyn was still affordable, so people moved the scenes over to Brooklyn. There's more clubs in Brooklyn for all kinds of music, whereas before you'd go to Manhattan. But that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, and like I said, one someday when I go there, I love to, for example, go to the street where Kiss took the Dress to Kill album cover.
Yeah.
Even this, like, I'd love to go see that, where they took the Halfway to Sanity cover, and even the Too Tough to Die one, and even that iconic photo of them outside CBGB's.
Yeah.
Like, be great, and that's on my bucket list.
Yeah.
Someday. But let's get back to the ranking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you get going on some of these other subjects, I'll talk for like hours. You know.
Yeah, but like I was saying, Halfway to Sanity is my number 11, and honestly, growing up, I was never the hugest fan of this album, but through my teenage years, I grew to like this album a lot more because as I listened to it more, and it opens up strong with "I Want to Live," which is a great song.
Great.
Bop to Your Job is another great one, very heavy, and I love the palm muting that Johnny does throughout that song too. It's really great. And Garden of Serenity too is another underrated one. Weasel Face. Funny story about that is that they said themselves that they wrote that song about a real person who had a weasel face.
Was the weasel face. Because I thought somebody, just as you said that. I mean, I knew that, but you brought it, I'm like, yeah, I know somebody with a weasel face. Yeah, I back in college, me and one of my roommates, we were like writing crazy songs that would have fit right at, you know.
That's a funny song. And
yeah.
The next one, Go Lil Camaro Go, is a fun song. Debbie Harry from Blondie has vocals on it, and I love how that song captures that bubblegum feel, because like another thing about the Ramones is that they were influenced by a lot of that 50s and 60s, bubblegum and pop stuff. So I think they really capture it well in that song. It's a great duet, fun song by Joey and Debbie. And I Know Better Now, I think, is a really great song written by Richie. And Death to Me, which is actually my favorite song on this album. It's another underrated one. There's a great acoustic version that Joey did earlier in '87. I think it's him singing it, and Mickey, his brother, does the acoustic. It's a really good version.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, and then I Lost My Mind as another hardcore type song with Dee Dee's, aggressive vocals, and great song, very cool. And A Real Cool Time is a really good catchy tune. I think that had the potential to be a really good radio hit. It's a really good one.
Yeah. I
And
lost my mind. It just cracks me up. I mean, hearing Dee Dee sing those lyrics, and it's funny. I almost, as soon as you mentioned that, I just started that voice. I lost my mind. Oh. Yeah. Whenever Dee Dee sings, I mean, it depends. He has like two approaches to vocalizing. It's either just with a straight voice, or like really out of his throat, and like with I know we'll talk about it later, but like Warthog, that's like I Lost My Mind is like Warthog Part 2 in a way. It kind of reminds me, they're bookends,
bookend songs, yeah. Funny story about I Lost My Mind is my dad never knew that song actually until I told him about it and I showed it him, and then as soon as he heard the song and I showed it to him, he was like, "Wow, that's a kick-ass song!" And then he immediately bought it on iTunes, and yeah, he grew to like it. And he thought it was funny as hell too, with Dee Dee's vocals, and yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I like it. And now Halfway to Sanity. So you rank that at what, number 11?
Number 11, yeah.
Number 11. And yeah, mine ranks higher. Mine ranks higher. We'll get to that. So
Yeah.
uh,
But as I was saying too,
yeah,
this album I didn't really like a lot at first, but I grew to like it, as I said. And honestly too, sometimes when I pop on the Ramones, a lot of times I put this on first, not gonna lie. And like I was saying, these tracks, like I'm Not Jesus is another great song, very hardcore song, and written by Richie Ramone again.
yeah.
And then Bye Bye Baby is a pretty good mellow song. And actually, another fact is it's their longest song ever. It clocks in at 4 minutes and 33
Oh,
seconds.
that's an epic
Yeah, that,
length. Bones Tune.
yeah. That's like the, what's it called? That's like the 2112 of Ramon songs.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. For Ramones, sure. But, well, here's the thing with Ramones and with punk rock in general, but in Ramones especially, you know, that was a return to like 60s. In the 60s, they would call that type of thing garage. And later on, when we get off, if you want to go check them out on YouTube, but look up a band called The Sonics. And specifically a song called Strychnine. It came out in 1966. It's going to remind you of what the Ramones were doing. And it's 1966. And they used to call it back then, they didn't really have a name for this kind of rock and roll that was, louder and a little more aggressive. But it was later known as garage rock.
Yeah.
And that's what the Ramones were doing. All those garage rock tunes were short, a minute and a half, 2 minutes, in and out of there, 3 or 4 chords, shout out your lyrics, boom. And it was fun, upbeat, rocking stuff. That's where the Ramones, when you pick up on things like, their bubblegum influence and, just the way to play those 3 chords, that way, that back to the garage stuff in the 60s. That's what punk was, it was simplifying rock and roll.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then the last track, Worm Man, is honestly still the only song I don't like on the album. Um, Maybe I'll warm up to it later on, but still, at the moment, it's my least favorite song on the album. And
Yeah.
it's the album, so I can easily just press stop right there. And yeah,
It's like, and you know what? It's on the very end of the album, so it's kind of like, yeah, all right, we had time for one more here,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
I don't know if he knows Weasel Face or not, but
yeah. But yeah, that's my number 11, Halfway to Sandy, and I do think the production was better than Animal Boy's production, and it was produced by Daniel Ray and the Ramones actually. And the other thing too is Richie Ramone mixed a few songs on here, so
yeah.
maybe they considered him the Ramones.
Well, Daniel Ray, yeah, he's been involved with the Ramones as a producer. He's also done ghost playing for Johnny on some of the studio albums.
Yeah.
Or not outright ghost playing, his guitar is on there too. And it's just mixed in, in the background. So, yeah, especially on that album. And then Daniel Ray also worked with Dee Dee on some of his solo stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that's true, yeah.
Daniel Ray, he's worked with the Dictators, in the later years. So yeah, that's a name to look out for.
Yeah, and he's a big Ramones fan as well. He even said in an interview once that for him it was like working with the Ramones was like him working with his generation of the Beatles, even.
Oh yeah, There's definitely that vibe. Absolutely.
Yeah, and another thing too about Halfway to Sandy was this was Richie's last album with the band. He left right around when it came out, and of course we all know about, he wasn't getting his fair share of the T-shirt money, but Richie, in my opinion, was a great member of the band. I love how, his contributions, like he wrote songs and was a great drummer, and he even did backing vocals live with
Yeah.
Joe Satriani, and even some of the demos he sang on too. He really contributed a lot more than you think, and I feel like he was kind of an underused member of the band.
Yeah. Yeah. He was, and he was an incredible drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And again, with contributing the songs, sure. He definitely was a very important member of that band. Um, and I actually met him. Richie Ramone played at Cafe 9 in New Haven, which is a much smaller club than Toad's Place.
Yeah.
This was a couple ago. But I'll tell you about it later on when we get to what album? Too Tough to Die. That
Okay.
somewhere on our lists, and when we talk about it, then I'll talk about meeting Richie. But yeah, but again, his last album, uh, I like everything he did with the Ramones. So
Yeah, he was a terrific songwriter. Yeah.
yeah. So number 11, my number 11, um, end of the century. It's down there, and the reason why it's down toward the end of the list, I think it's something. First of all, I think the songs on it are tremendous. The songs are great. I think I'm disappointed in the Phil Spector production.
Yeah.
If Phil had produced a couple of songs only, like, do you remember Rock and Roll Radio? And if he produced, Baby I Love You, um, and then the rest of the album was produced by somebody else, I think that may have worked, like release those as Phil Spector produced singles. Because, it's interesting. This past summer, I just reading a biography of Spector called Down the Wall of Sound. And Phil Spector was a genius producer in some respects, but I don't think that he really was truly effective for every artist that he produced. And I think the Ramones is a really good example. The Ramones are a band, those sessions drove Johnny the craziest out of anybody in that band, because Johnny is like, he only wants to do what needs to be done. Get in there, play the tunes, get out. And Phil had them repeating parts over and over again, wearing these guys out, um, really wasting time. And the thing is, the Phil Spector Wall of Sound, that's the legendary, the Wall of Sound. Well, the Wall of Sound is produced by um, overproduction. I mean, usually there's an orchestra in there. You have, 3 guitars, 2 drum sets. You got everything's doubled and tripled and all this. And for the Ramones, to me, it was too much. It was too much. They also had session players playing along with the Ramones.
Yeah.
I Dee Dee's bass tracks may have been completely re-recorded by somebody else. Um, Johnny's guitars, I mean, there's other guitars overdubbed along with it. And I think it's not the album that it really could have been. And it was almost like a last grasp at the big time for the Ramones.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. It didn't work. It got them some radio airplay, which helped, of course. I mean, I remember listening to FM rock radio and actually hearing Do You Remember Rock and Roll Radio on it. So that was good. That was exciting. Yeah. But I just think that Phil had a lot of problems. He'd be up for days. He would lose, perspective. Some of his ideas, like I say, they didn't work for everybody. They may have worked if, you're dealing with just putting together something for a singer, which is exactly what he did with "Baby I Love You." There's no other member of the Ramones
No,
on that song.
that's just strictly Joey and the session players.
Exactly. Now listen to how that actually is almost the best sounding track production wise on there. Uh, and that almost not proves my point, but that's where I think that he was not necessarily the right producer um, for them. So that's why End of the Century ranks at number 11 on my list. I listen to it because I think the songs are great. The songs are there. So you know due to the production, it's low on my list.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely agree on that. Like the production, like well, I'll talk more about it too when I get to it on my list. But definitely the production is the big thing about it. The wall of sound and everything. It didn't work for the Ramones, and even like you said, Johnny too was more about getting it done and getting it over with. And of course, he always talked about how those sessions were a nightmare for him, and even of course that infamous story when he had to record that opening chord to Rock and Roll High School. Like Phil had him do that like over 60 or 70 times, and for hours, and it was a painful experience for Johnny. And yeah, even his father passed away, I think, during that album too.
Yeah,
So it definitely wasn't the best time and experience for the band, and then Johnny like for recording it. But like you said, like it's got great songs on it, and I'll talk more about it too when I get to it on my list. But definitely, yeah. So that was your number.
that
11?
was my number 11. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, my number. Now I'll go to my number 10. My number 10 is 1981's "Pleasant Dreams."
Oh.
Yeah, and this is one that I've always I listen to it a lot. It's got great songs on it. Of course, it's produced by Graham Goldman, who produced 10cc, and then you're even on the reissue here there's the original cover, what it would have been with them there, more darker, and
Yeah.
where of course the original cover is more like a creature in a big jacket, more like a villain type.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, I think the original cover definitely works.
Yeah, I think it works better too, and it's even, of course, the first cover too without the band on it. So but yeah, this album too is, I never hated, but it's good. I like how it opens up great with "We Want the Airwaves," and which was a song written about how they wanted more airplay and more exposure, and they weren't really getting it as they hoped. But great song. And All's Quiet on the Eastern Front's a great song too. I love that Joey and Dee Dee share vocals on that, and great live too. And the KKK Took My Baby Away is a classic, and which a lot of people think that it was written about Johnny Ramone stealing Linda away from Joey, but both Marky and Mickey, Joey's brother, dispute that, and they both say it was about Joey when he was in the mental institution, and he got really close with this black girl, and
Mm-hmm.
he really liked her. And then one day she was gone because the girl's parents didn't want her dating Joey because he was Jewish or whatever.
Yeah.
And Joey wrote it about that being humorous. The KKK took my baby away, and it's a great song. It became a staple for the band live, and yeah, definitely a highlight for the album. And You Sound Like You're Sick is one of my favorites. That I think that would have worked well and really fitted on an album like Road to Ruin or Leave Home or Rocket to Russia, like those early albums. It's a great song. And She's a Sensation is a great song, really good, well written song. And 7-Eleven, really good ballad. And This Business Is Killing Me, fun song. Sitting in My Room, great closure to the album. And even the expanded edition here, which has bonus tracks,
Mm-hmm.
some really good demos that some of these songs didn't make the album, like Kicks to Try, I'm Not an Answer. That one's probably my favorite. That's a really good one. I'm Not an Answer, and Chop Suey's on here too.
Yeah, that's a fun.
What's a
I like that.
Yeah, it's a fun song. Debbie Harry is on it, and the B-52s. I think it was on the soundtrack for a movie that was released around that time. That even Alan Arkish produced, who helped make Rock and Roll High School.
I can't remember the film. You're right. I can't.
Yeah, I can't remember it either, but it's a fun song. So, but yeah, Pleasant Dreams. That's my number 10. Really good album in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and it ranks higher on my list. I think Pleasant Dreams. If Graham Gouldman had produced End of the Century, I think End of the Century have worked a lot better. I like Graham Gouldman's production. I think that's exactly what Phil Spector was going for, and he just overdid it, or he was just going for something, you know, bigger than that. I think it works because yeah, there is like this extra production on that album. That's certainly not the type of vibe you get from a live Ramones gig. It's not that stripped raw type of thing.
Yeah.
So it's a little polish to it, but it's really effective. I think it really works. I love the songs on that album, and I love the way they're recorded, the production. So, I'll let you know where it's on my list when we get there, but I do rank it higher.
Yeah.
Again, for all the reasons that you like it, that's the reason. Those are the reasons why I have it ranked higher.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's a much better produced album than End of the Century.
Yeah. And sorry to interrupt you, Ed, but I gotta go get myself a bottle of water. I'm really so keep talking until I get back if you want.
All right.
Yeah.
So Drake's off to get some water. Just want to thank Drake for inviting me on his Sunday night music chats. Last week was my first time with him, and we talked about Kiss, another favorite band of ours, and so much to talk about, and we didn't get to everything. So maybe next week, maybe another show, we're going to talk a little bit more about Kiss. And more to come here on our Ramones Talk. We are only at number 10. There are 14 studio Ramones releases, and we're ranking them.
Hey, Ed, I'm back.
And Drake is back. All right.
Sorry, I just been getting over a cold I had in the last while. So
no, that's fine. That's fine. I was just talking.
Yeah, that's good.
I was talking to those who are tuned in this evening. Thank you. We are Facebook Live. Drake Quinn, Ed Flynn, Canada, Connecticut. Oh, and we have a shared love of the Ramones.
We do, yeah, for sure.
All right. So our
here tonight.
That?
And that's why we're here tonight.
That's why we're here. Yeah, we're talking Ramones this evening. So our Ramones album, studio album ranking, we've already covered numbers 14 through 10. So Drake, what is your number 9?
Okay. My number 9 is the album you recently discussed, and that was 1980s End of the Century. Yeah. And again, like I said a bit before, like you were saying too, this album is great. Like the songs are really great, and but the production too is the big a thing that kind of doesn't showcase the songs as well as they should sound like. And another thing too, the expanded edition has demos. Like the demo of Danny Says of the demo is really good. That's like stripped down Ramones, how they written it and would play it originally. But even though Phil Spector made it so beautiful on the album with all the
he did.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some tracks where the production really works, and then there's other where I think the Ramones sound is just too obscured. And when you listen to those bonus tracks, okay, what a contrast. What a
Yeah.
between the final product and the demos. And that's what got me thinking, wow, what if they got Graham Gouldman, to work on those demos? That would have been interesting.
It would
But
have,
yeah.
yeah. But I think, like you were saying, like it worked. Like I think it worked on Danny Says especially because it really became a more beautiful song. But at the same time, with how the Ramones originally written it, it's you can't help but appreciate that more, like the rawness of it and the energy and yeah.
Well,
And the album opens up with a classic. Do you remember Rock and Roll Radio? And it's also a throwback to like lyrical wise too, and even um, musical wise. Like there's a saxophone in it, and
oh yeah,
lyrically too. Like it goes back to when they mentioned the '60s stuff they loved growing up.
even 50s. There's
Yeah,
like
the
Mercury
'50s too. Yeah,
the K. There's references that go back to the 50s and early 60s, definitely. Yeah, the early days of rock and roll radio. Yeah, the sax. I remember hearing that for the first time on the radio, and I'm like, whoa, a saxophone, But again, I knew it was a Phil Spector thing, so I wasn't totally surprised. Oh, no, if I didn't know that, then I would have been like, wow, what's this?
yeah, yeah. And it's a great song. Even the demo of that too is much more rawer and stripped down like how the Ramones usually are. But great song, and it became a staple through set lists throughout the years. And I'm Affected is another great song. That was, I think, the first song from the album that they actually played live. I remember hearing a show from February of '79 in Ann Arbor, and it's on there. So that was even before they recorded the album. So that was cool. And it's a great song. I love it. And of course, Danny Says I talked about already, and I really love that song. Chinese Rock is a great song too. That was also first recorded by Johnny Thunders.
Yep.
Um, I think he recorded his in '77 or '76.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Johnny Heartbreakers. They
yeah,
recorded that on an album called LAMF, and yeah, Johnny didn't want to do it when Dee Dee wrote the song, and then they ended up doing it on End of the Century. I think it's a great song. It worked. It's it works well for the Ramones, but Johnny didn't want to do a song that was about heroin. So
yeah. That was why he didn't want to do it.
I what convinced them to do it for that album. So whatever.
Yeah,
Song, great.
and that song too became a live staple too through the years.
Yeah, exactly. For a song you didn't want to do, it became a good part of the set. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great song. It's total Ramones, and of course, there's the cover of "Baby I Love You" by the Ronettes, and
Yeah.
of course, like you said earlier, that's really where Phil Spector pretty much you know, tries to get to do what he wants to do in the style of like production and sound that he was trying to go for. And even like you said, like Joey's the only Ramone on that song. Dee Dee, Johnny, and Marky do not play on it.
No,
It's session players.
those are all the members of Phil Spector's group of musicians.
Yeah. And Johnny too hated that song. He hated that they covered it. And another fun fact about it too is that song was their biggest hit in England.
Yep. They appeared on top of the Pops, miming to that.
Yeah, yeah. And that clip is on the It's Alive DVD too, and there's even violin players there and people dancing to it.
Yeah, definitely not a Ramones type of thing. I'm sure Johnny was like, "What are we doing?"
Yeah. And even that song was only played live like once, and I think even when they played it live, there's a recording of it on YouTube. It's not the best quality, but it's still listenable. There's even like a keyboard player or synthesizer player too playing the.
Really?
Yeah, I think, and it's a recording from January of 1980, and it is in Europe.
I'll have to look that up. Very interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting. Wasn't aware of that. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was only played live like once. I'm sure Johnny said, "No, we're not playing that live ever again. Screw that." But love or hate the song, I think Joey does a really great vocal performance on that song. And yeah, I really like it, even though it's very different for them. But yeah, it was yeah. And then there's like I Can't Make It on Time, which is another underrated song, and they even played that live too on the tour for this. And it really sounds better live, I feel, because it's more Ramones style, like more sounds more raw and stripped down how they usually sound. And it's great. And then This Ain't Nevada is a great song. And of course, Rock and Roll High School's on here. It's a re-recorded version, which of course opens up with that infamous chord that Phil made Johnny record 70 times. And they tried to get that like Beatles Hard Day's Night style of that big power chord. So, and it's a classic, great song. Became one of their biggest hits and most well-known songs, and it became a live staple too. So, in all the ways, a great song. And High Risk Insurance, never been a big fan of that one.
Yeah.
That
That
closes
sounds
the album.
their
So
track.
yeah, that
That,
closes the album too. So right there, I can press stop.
there you go.
Yeah.
Right. The thing with that chord having been played all those times, I bet you the first take was the best one.
Probably, yeah.
Oh, just based on what I read, in that Phil Spector book, I'm almost surprised work got done. Because working with him, you'd spend way more time than probably necessary, but
Yeah.
that's genius for you. And with genius, sometimes comes some insanity.
Yeah.
And that was definitely, I mean, look what happened to Phil. I mean, he ended up killing somebody.
Yeah. And being put in jail till he passed like 2 years
I
ago.
was surprised it didn't happen earlier. I mean, I don't know if he outright murdered that woman, but it was definitely, at the very least, recklessness, an accident.
Yeah.
Phil used to pull guns out and fire them. I mean, there's stories about him pulling out a gun on the Ramones, but I mean, you have Dee Dee's version, and then Marky said it never happened that way. He just happened to put guns on display or something. But there was a session that Phil had produced for John Lennon, and Eric Clapton was on the session, and I can't remember who else. But anyway, they were in the studio, and I guess there was kind of a party atmosphere going on, and Phil, to get their attention, pulls out a gun and blasts a shot into the ceiling. And then of course the funny line from John Lennon is like, something about, if you're going to kill me, but don't make me go deaf or something like that. you know, accidents can happen, and I'm surprised it didn't happen earlier with Phil Spector. But that's, that's a whole other thing. But,
yeah.
imagine that, working with someone like that, and then years later, it's like, oh my God, he killed somebody. It's like craziness. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely crazy. Yeah. But yeah, that's my number 9. That's End of the Century.
Okay. Well, my number 9 is something that we already talked about because you ranked it lower. My number 9 is Animal Boy.
Nice.
Yeah. At number 9, I mean, it's up there because probably the strength of some of the songs,
Yeah.
Jean Beauvoir's production. It works in some. It's almost like the Bill Laswell thing. It's not a bad production, but maybe not quite right for the Ramones. I mean, Jean Beauvoir has worked. I mean, he worked. Um, uh, what Kiss album?
He did he co-wrote some songs on Asylum, and I think even on Animalize.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Point being, I think that is more his forte as opposed to something, along the lines of Ramones. So yeah, that's where Animal Boy ranks for me.
He co-wrote "Who Wants to Be Lonely" with Paul and Desmond Child, and he co-wrote "All Night" too with them.
Yeah.
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 And some songs on Animalize too.
Yeah, I think that's more along the lines of, more in his wheelhouse. The Ramones are a tough band to produce because, some producers have their own techniques, their own stamp. Like you listen to an album, like, oh yeah, that's produced by, whomever. And I'm not necessarily sure those are the types of producers that the Ramones needed. I mean, I can understand how they want to maybe think outside the box. And the record company, they always they want to sell music. So they try these things. Well, here's the current sound. Here are the current production techniques. Let's current. Let's this is what's selling. And the Ramones were just so unique. Their charm, their appeal was that raw simplicity.
Yeah.
So it's hit or miss. So yeah, Animal Boy. I don't really have anything else to say about it. That's my number 9. So now we're on to number 8.
Yeah, number 8 now, and my number 8 is the last studio album, Adios
Uh-huh.
Amigos.
Ah,
Yeah, and yeah, this was the last album from the band, released in 1995, the 14th studio album, and this was nearly 20 years of making music, and they you know this was produced by Daniel Ray as well, who's, I think, did great production, and it opens up strong with "I Don't Want to Grow Up," a Tom Waits cover, which was kind of a minor hit for them, actually, even at that point. And there's a cool video for it too. And the other thing
that,
too is
uh,
Dee Dee. What's that?
that's a tremendous cover. I
Yeah,
agree.
it's great.
I mean, talk about making a song your own. That sounds like it could have been written, like by Dee Dee. That perfect for them. Absolutely perfect. I love Tom Waits. He definitely does not sound like the Ramones,
No.
but that's a great example of the Ramones. That's better than anything on Acid Eaters.
Yeah,
I
I agree. Yeah.
the covers that they did album to album, that's better than the Acid Eater stuff. But that's tremendous. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's a great, phenomenal cover. I love it. And another thing too is that, of course, Dee Dee is not the bassist on here because it's CJ, but Dee Dee actually co-wrote 6 songs on this album.
Yep.
Yep, and like the next one, he co-wrote "Making Monsters for My Friends," which I think he recorded on one of his solo albums. I think it was the "I Hate Freaks Like You" one, right? Yeah,
That's correct. Yeah.
yeah. It's a great song. And CJ sings it on here, does a great job. And
Yeah.
"It's Not for Me to Know." It's another great song that Dee Dee wrote.
CJ sings the Dee Dee songs, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. And he does a great job. And "It's Not for Me to Know" is another great one. And "The Crusher" is another one that Dee Dee wrote and CJ sang. And that too was another one that was on Dee Dee's solo album from '89, his hip hop album, "Standing in the Spotlight."
Yeah.
And it's a great song. It's fits the Ramones well, and they even played it live. And CJ sang it great too. And it's a great song. It's a classic. And then there's "Life's a Gas," which Joey wrote, and it's kind of an emotional song lyrically. Sometimes I wonder if Joey knew, because by this time in '95 he already been diagnosed with lymphoma
Yeah.
by then, and I wonder if he knew, he wouldn't be around forever or much longer. And I wonder if he wrote that intentionally to make the fans feel like, he's all right, he's gonna be here. But it's a great song. I think it could have fit well on "End of the Century" even. And And then they do a Johnny Thunders cover of "I Love You," which I think is really good as well. And "Cretin Family," another great song that CJ sang, and "Scatterguns," CJ wrote, another great song. "Got a Lot to Say." I think "Got a Lot to Say" could have fit really well on the first Ramones album. It's got that vibe of, it's not even more than 2 minutes long too. It's
Yeah.
really fast and short and total Ramones. And CJ wrote that, but Joey sang it. It's another great song. And "She Talks to Rainbows" too is a great one. "Born to Die in Berlin" ends the album, which Dee Dee actually sang a verse on, and it's in German because Dee Dee himself is half German.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good closer to the album. And yeah, and that's my number 8, and that's Adios Amigos, the last album.
It's funny. Did we skip number 10?
Did we skip number 10? I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, because here's the thing. My number 10 is Adios Amigos.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know,
I
because we were talking about,
I don't really recall you talking about it.
right, because we skipped. We must have skipped number 10. Because that's my number 10.
Okay.
Adios.
Well, my number 10 was Pleasant Dreams.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we number 10. All right. And then we went, okay. Well, I failed to say what my number 10 was. We said what yours was. I left it.
It's
So
all right. It's mistakes happen.
Yeah. Right. And I don't have anything more to add to what you said. All the great things you said about it. That I agree.
Yeah. I thought it was a good album to go out on, Plus the album Adios Amigos, they called it that intentionally because they knew it would be the last album anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, they did a big farewell tour and said goodbye around the world to all the fans, and they went on a high note. Even though I honestly wish they, never, the original members never passed, and hopefully would have did a reunion at some point. But it's, it is what it is.
Yeah, unfortunately. All right, so we're at, that was number 8, right?
Yeah, my number 8. Yeah.
Okay, so you're at number 8. So my number 8, and we already talked about it, was Halfway to Sanity. So I don't have anything to add to it. We already discussed it.
Yeah.
I told you it's going to rank higher on my lists, but no need to rehash what we talked about. So we're on number 7.
We're number 7 now.
Yes.
Yeah, and my number 7 is what I feel is an underrated album, and it doesn't get talked about as much, but I always liked it. And my number 7 is Mondo Bizarro from 1992.
Ah, okay, that was my number 12.
Yeah, and yeah, I really liked this album. And of course, it was CJ's first album with the band, after Dee Dee left. And another thing too, this album too features songs written by Dee Dee. Because I think before this album, I think that Dee Dee actually got in trouble and he got put in jail, and then he asked for the Ramones for help, and then they told Dee Dee, if you want us to get you out of jail, you got to write songs for us for the next album. And Dee Dee just said, "Oh, just get me out of here, I'll do it."
Yeah.
And then Dee Dee wrote Poison Heart, Strength to Endure, and Main Man for the album.
Yeah, those are great songs.
Yeah,
Dee Dee is a great songwriter.
He is, yeah. His songwriting is a big and important factor to the sound. And 2 of those songs CJ sang too, which is great. And the album opens up with Censorship, which Joey wrote. It was about his thoughts on the whole PMRC things that happened during the 80s when they were, criticizing hard rock and metal music for, stuff, and putting the parental advisory sticker on albums and stuff. And
I remember it well.
And Joey hated that, and that's why he wrote this song. He called, instead of censorship, it's censorship.
That's
And he mentions Ozzy and Frank Zappa in it, and Tipper Gore, you know. So it's really a great song, great opener to the album. And of course, you got Poison Heart on here, which Dee Dee wrote. It's a great song, and Strength to Endure. It's Gonna Be All Right is a really great one. That's a really great positive song. Like, it's, I feel, for the fans, you know. And even there's a lyric in there that says all is well, CJ is here, and it's a great song. And Take It As It Comes, a great cover again they did from the Doors, and they even played that live. And there was one show where they played it live where they actually invited Robbie Krieger on stage to play with
yeah. That's a great clip.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a great version of that song. Definitely.
Yeah. And I think that cover is what inspired the whole thing with Acid Eaters too, I heard.
Probably. Yeah. Because that is around that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely.
Yeah, it's a great version. And then Main Man's a great song, CJ sang, written by Dee Dee. Tomorrow She Goes Away, and Cabby's on Crack is a fun song, great song, which Joey wrote. And even Vernon Reid from Living Color does the guitar solo on that song.
Oh, yeah. He's another one of my favorites. You know, I mean, I'm a big Living Color fan, but I was aware of him before Living Color. You know, he wasn't doing rock at all. And yeah, he's one of my favorites, definitely.
Yeah, he's a great player. And I think that happened too with the whole Ed Stasium connection, because Ed Stasium produced this album, and he produced a few Living Color albums too. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Vernon and his Rolodex there. So
yeah,
so that
it's a great song. And Heidi's a Head Case is another great song, and Album Ends with Touring, which was another song that was demoed around Pleasant Dreams era that finally made it to an album. So yeah. And this is the Captain Oi reissue version, which has their cover of Spider-Man as a bonus track.
Oh,
and that's another great cover too.
I love that cover. Their Spider-Man is tremendous.
Yeah,
I like that a lot. Fun song, you know.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite covers that they did.
Yeah, it's perfect. So that was your number 7, right?
Yep, my number 7.
Okay. My number 7, we already talked about, is Brain Drain. So I like Brain Drain more than some of those albums that we talked about.
Yeah.
And again, we've already discussed it, so you know, nothing more I need to add, other than I rate it higher than you do.
Yeah.
All right, you know, it's just comparing notes. So then that brings us to number 6.
Yep, number 6. Number 6 now. And my number 6 is an album we talked about too. And my number 6 is 1983's Subterranean Jungle. And again, I've always had a strong love for this album too, because this album was one of my dad's favorite albums too. And another thing too about my dad is that he got into the Ramones in 1981, 82 era. And I think when he got into them, this was the first new album when it came out that he bought. So, and it had that, I'm sure it had that, you know, effect on him too, like the new album at the time. So, and like you said too, like I think the production on this album, like especially the drum sound, was so not really good. Like,
No, I don't like it.
yeah. And Marky Ramone himself didn't like it too. So
Well,
the drum sound could have been better.
well, Marky had some issues. I mean,
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, you know.
And even after this album, he got kicked out due to his alcohol addiction.
Yeah, well, he was hiding a bottle of alcohol in the studio bathroom there, and he was drinking, you know, during the sessions.
Yeah.
And now you can't have that. You can't have that. you know.
Yeah,
But look what happened. He cleaned up and he came back better than ever.
that's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, this album too, like, opens up with two covers, "A Little Bit of Soul" and "I Need Your Love." You know, their
Yeah.
cover "A Little Bit of Soul" is, I don't dislike it, but it's not one of my favorite covers of theirs. Honestly, sometimes when I put this album on, I'll start it with "I Need Your Love," but it's still, it's all right. "An Outsider" is a great classic. Definitely a song I'm sure most Ramones fans can relate to. And great song written by Dee Dee. And "What You Do," I always liked. It's another fun song. "Highest Trails Above" too is a great song.
Yeah.
And "Psychotherapy," of course, is on here, classic. And then they did a cover of "Time Has Come Today," which, again, not one of my favorites, but it was all right. And there's even a music video for it. And yeah, and "In the Park" is another great song. I feel that could have fit well on "Rocket to Russia" or something. It's
Yeah. Yeah. It's got the old vibe to it.
mm,
Opening up with two covers is probably another reason why I had it ranked so low down to number 14. Because as a new album, you want to hear a new original. It's
yeah,
okay to have covers on the album, but they're opening it up, and to me, it's like, well, wait a minute. If you have something to offer, hit us with that originally.
yeah,
So I think I'm not sure if opening up with two covers on the album really helped the flow of it. I would have liked to have the album, because when I listen to an album, it's like reading a book
yeah,
or watching a film. From start to finish. And your opening has got to grab you. And your ending is something you remember. You put your filler in the middle.
yeah.
So, but again, interesting. That's probably you and I. Some of our choices are kind of close, but this one is like way apart.
Yeah, it's way apart. I think this was your 14, right?
Yeah, that was my last
Yeah,
14.
yeah. And then you got "Time Bomb" too, which was Dee Dee's first vocal performance, like first lead vocal that he did, and it's a great song. Closes out too with "Every Time I Eat Vegetables, It Makes Me Think of You." Pretty, humorous song, but
Yeah,
fun. And then,
I like it.
of course, there's bonus tracks too. Their cover of "Indian Givers" on there, and some demos, some songs that didn't make the album, like "Roots of Hatred," and which I really like, on "Unhappy Girl" and "Bumming Along." And I think too about those demos of those songs, I really like how in those songs you can hear their 50s influence in that. And they're really, really, really cool. And yeah, that's my number 6. That's "Subterranean Jungle" from 1983.
My number 6 is "Pleasant Dreams,"
Nice.
and for the reasons that I gave earlier, I really do like the production, and I really like the songs. And as I said earlier, I think this is what it beats the Phil Spector production.
Yeah.
One came the other, and I think it beat it. Again, if End of the Century had the same sound as Pleasant Dreams, I think it would have been even more successful. Um, and that's why I rank it at number 6. Nothing more to add. I already gave it my praises earlier.
Yeah.
Now we're down to the last five.
Yeah,
Five,
we're in the top 5 now. Yeah, we made it to the top 5. And
top five. Here we go. So take it away.
yeah, my number 5 is 1984's "Too Tough to Die."
Ah, nice.
Yeah. And like, yeah, this is my number 5. And this was the Ramones, going back to their roots. Like, this was, Tommy Ramone and Ed Stasium came back to produce this album. They produced "Road to Ruin" and "Rocket to Russia." And yeah, they came back for this album because, of course, before this they had "End of the Century," "Pleasant Dreams," "Subterranean Jungle." Those albums had different producers, and like we are kind of saying, producers who didn't know what to do with the Ramones sound, didn't know how to, a lot of experimentation going on there. And then this, they had Tommy and Ed back, and it was a really great album. It opens up strong with Mama's Boy and I'm Not Afraid of Life, Too Tough to Die, and Durango 95, which is their only instrumental, and which opened most of the majority of the live shows from here on till the end. And Warthog's on here, hardcore punks coming in, and Danger Zone's a great song, and Howlin' at the Moon, Sha-La-La is a great pop song, and Daytime Dilemma, Dangers of Love is one of my favorites, and Endless Vacation's another great hardcore song with Dee Dee's, aggressive vocals. And yeah, and Richie, and of course this was Richie Ramone's first album with the band, and on here he wrote Humankind, and even on the bonus tracks there's another song he wrote called Smash You.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and it's a great album. It's a great comeback album after, for them. And yeah, and plus the album cover too. This was shot by George DeBose in Central Park, and the cover is was actually a accident. It was a malfunction, but they liked it so much that they used it for the album cover.
Yeah, great effect.
Great effect, yeah.
Great album. It actually is my number 5 as well.
Oh, nice. We got it at number 5. Both.
Number 5. And I wanted to show you my copy, autographed by Richie Ramone.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hold on for 1 second here. Let me. Yeah, you can probably see it better. I had to. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great, man.
Yeah, that's like I said when I met him at Cafe 9 in New Haven. It was a couple of years ago, 2022, I believe, and I met him after the show, and I had autographed my copy of Too Tough to Die, and then I also had him autograph my copy of I Know Better.
Oh, cool. His book, his biography.
Yeah.
That's cool. I've been trying to get that too, but yeah, I haven't had time. I hear it's a really good read.
It is. It is. It's a good book. You won't read anything more detailed about him other than in this book. Unfortunately, he seems to be, a forgotten Ramone in some respects. You think about how long the Ramones were around. He was with them for what?
83 to 87.
Yeah. And but he was a very important member, and only member of the Ramones that I ever met. So,
there's only 3 members left now, and that's Marky, Richie, and CJ.
Yeah, that's
the
it.
Original lineup. All 4 of them are passed away, sadly.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's Clem.
Yeah,
Clem Burke.
Elvis Ramone. Yeah, he's come around too.
Elvis Ramone. But it's only people like us that know these names,
because we're hardcore Ramones guys. The casuals wouldn't know that.
We're detail oriented,
Yeah.
Well, I thought that was really, really cool that we finally gave an album the same exact ranking on our list.
Yeah, number 5.
Yeah, number 5. All right, so
do you have anything to add on Too Tough to Die?
No, I mean, again, I love the songs. I love the production on it. Everything you said, I mean, working with Tommy and Ed Stasium was perfect. It's what it needed, and I thought it was a very strong album. I do have a memory of when it came out. I was in college. I was involved with the college radio station, and a lot of my friends that were also involved in the station, they were Ramones fans. I remember when the album arrived at the station, we're like, yeah, new Ramones. Whoever was on was doing, just like a new rock show. We're like, play this, play whatever. Just play anything off this album. And I just remember it was a fun album that we used to listen to back then. It was, it was on our turntables a lot. We went and got our own copies, or maybe one person had it and, borrow it, whatever. But that reminds me definitely of the college years,
Yeah.
when it came out then, and again, my college years, I was doing a metal show on college radio, so I was more of a metalhead, but Ramones, I always gave time for. I always paid attention to what the Ramones were doing. And I love this. So, yeah, nothing more to add about that album.
Yeah.
Just
Great album, man.
other than the fact that I love it. It's a great, great album. It just sounds good. It's just strong.
Ron, yeah, number 5 for both of us.
Yeah. So,
yeah, so we'll head into number 4 now.
Number 4.
Yeah. And my number 4 is 1978's Road to Ruin.
Ah.
Yep. So now we're in the, as they say, the first classic, 4. So, and this is a great album and a great album cover too. I think it was written by, drew by John Holstrom, right?
Yep.
Yep. And this was 78, and this was the first album with Marky Ramone on drums, because Tommy Ramone, of course, left the band because he wanted to focus more on production, because another thing is he produced the first 3 Ramones albums, and he really liked that, and he wanted to focus more on that, and plus he was, kind of worn out from the road too, so.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well,
and he wanted to focus more on that, so Marky Ramone joined, who previously played with the Richard Hell and the Voidoids and Dust and Wayne County. And
yeah. Great choice. I mean, Marky would probably even be overqualified for what was totally necessary. But what Marky said was he basically copied what Tommy did, but played it harder and played it a little faster.
Yeah.
Because Marky has chops. You listen to those Dust albums, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
And,
great drummer.
You can see some clips on YouTube or on Marky's Facebook page where he's done some drum solos, not in concert, but just like wherever, and working out on a kit. And you're like, oh, man. He's really something. But Road to Ruin. That's a great album. I could talk about it, but I'm going to wait until it gets to my ranking.
Yeah, great on. And yeah, like I was saying, and even the cover, like, that's Marky right there, but in the first design of the cover, it had Tommy originally, because John didn't know that Tommy was leaving the band, so he had to take out Tommy and put Marky in there instead.
Yeah.
And yeah, great album. It has great classics, like opens up with I Just Want to Have Something to Do, and I Wanted Everything. Don't Come Close is a great pop song, and their cover of Needles and Pins is on here. I Want to Be Sedated, arguably their biggest hit, is on here, and Go Mental, She's the One, Bad Brain, great song. It's a Long Way Back. So much great songs and great production on here. This album had a bigger budget and production wise than the first 3, so
yeah.
And even the bonus tracks on this reissue has the songs from the Rock and Roll High School movie and soundtrack, like I Want You Around and Rock and Roll High School, and even the live concert melody from the movie too. And it's a great album. I love Road to Ruin, and it's my number 4.
Those CD reissues from that year are tremendous. The bonus material is great. Whether it's or studio demos, what have you. Really, really good reissues, definitely.
Yeah.
So that's your 4, right? Road to Ruin?
That's my number 4, yeah. Road to Ruin.
Mine ranks higher. We'll get to that. My number 4 is actually the Ramones' debut album.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Other Ramones album, like before that one, but it's tremendous. To rank it at number 4, it's almost like, wow, really? But the differences in my number, I mean, we're talking very, very close, very close. But the first album, I mean, we were talking about it earlier before we got into the album ranking, just hearing the Ramones back then. And
Yeah.
I think it was something off the first album that I heard, maybe Leave Home, but what have you. That time frame, you know, it was just different. So different than what I was listening to. But it's in terms of it was loud rock and the whole album, it's just a classic. It's a classic. Why isn't the debut my number one? Well, because I think with albums that came out after it, there's certain things that I liked better about it. So, and we'll get to that when we get to those albums.
Yeah.
So, my number four is the debut Ramones album.
That's awesome. Great. And now we're number three now. And my number three is from 1977, and it is Leave Home, their second album. And this is, you know, their second album and the follow-up to the first one. And, you know, it's another great album, very raw, you know, opens up with Glad to See You Go, Gimme Gimme Shock Treatment, I Remember You, Carbona Not Glue is on here, which we all know was, you know, back when this came out, it was banned because of, you know, they got sued from the Carbona company, sadly. So they had to make a new pressing of Leave Home, and they added Sheena as a punk rocker to it for the US copies, and then for the European ones, they added Babysitter to it.
Yeah.
And Carbona Not Glue was, for years, you couldn't find it anymore. It's a great song.
What's interesting, you had pulled out at the beginning of the show, Loco Live, and they do a song on it, but they don't list it on the
hidden track.
Yeah, because Carbona is a registered trademark. You know, it's
It's a hidden track too on that. I think they played at the end of after Pet Cemetery, and then it's not listed as its own track.
Exactly. Yeah.
And of course, Susie's a Headbanger is a great song, and Pinhead's on here. Gabba Gabba Hey.
Yeah.
You know, great song, man. Classic
stuff.
Mm-hmm. Swallow My Pride, California Sun's on here. Great cover that again they made their own, and Commando, which is one of the Ramones' greatest songs, and You're Gonna Kill That Girl. You should have never have opened that door. And this expanded edition too has Carbona Not Glue back on the album, and it closes with Babysitter, so it has 15 songs.
Yeah,
I really love.
Yeah, I have that. That's the best. That's the definitive edition. You know, those reissues are tremendous.
They are, yeah, I really love them. And of course, on this one too, there's bonus tracks, and it's a whole live show from August of '76 at the Roxy in Los Angeles. No demos on this one, but it's a whole live show, which is great. And yeah, nothing really more to say about Leave Home. It's like I said, my number three, and it's again a great classic Ramones album, and it's essential. You know, it's a great album. It's my number three. I love Leave Home.
Just to let you know, as we're wrapping this up, I'm watching the power on my phone. We're at 17%. So I think my phone's going to die right after we get to number one or something.
Yeah, and I'm actually looking at the power on mine. Mine is at 6% now, so I got to start charging mine.
But anyway, okay, so that was
my
wait a minute.
Number three.
That was your number three. My number three is Rocket to Russia.
Oh, nice.
Great production. I mean, you know, as the third album, it was the best sounding album. It's like with each album, the sound gets better. And the production on Rocket to Russia really, really works.
Yeah.
The song, it's just great. The songs are great. Rockaway Beach is just a great song. Lock It Love. I'm drawing a blank here on the other songs, but I just love it. I love the album. It's one of my more often listened to Ramones albums. Definitely. So that's my number three. You know, great artwork. It's just a great package. I really like it. You know, it's that early, you know, it's the original band. It's just got a great swing to it. You know,
Yeah,
usually we hear swing when we refer to it like a jazz, but you need it in other music too. And that's definitely both Tommy and Marky that they rocked, but they had a swing.
yeah,
And that's music really how fast music moves along, you know, especially the way Ramones did it,
yeah,
you know. Like for instance, like speed metal, there's no sense of swing there. But like the Ramones playing at that tempo, there's a sense of swing. And yeah, Rocket to Russia's got that, definitely. So I really like it. Um, so
that's awesome. That's number 3 for you.
number three,
Yeah,
yeah. And number two for Drake.
number 2 for me. Yeah, here we go. Number 2 now. There's only one more after this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, here we go. My number 2 is none other than the first Ramones album,
Oh,
not the debut, 1976. And really, what's there to say about this album? I mean, it's an iconic album. It's one of the most important albums of all time, and even one of the most influential of all time. And it's definitely one of the most important albums ever, too. You know, and that cover too is so iconic with them at the wall there together, and of course, Blitzkrieg Bop's on here, Beat on the Brat, Judy's a Punk, I Want to Be Your Boyfriend, Chainsaw, Now I Want to Sniff Some Glue.
yeah.
I Don't Want to Go Down to the Basement, Loudmouth, Havana Affair, Listen to My Heart, 53rd and Third, and their cover of Let's Dance, which is a great cover. Of course, they made it their own, and very fun. And I Don't Want to Walk Around with You, and Today Your Love, Tomorrow the World closes the album. And literally every song is great, amazing, and the album is 29 minutes long. Like, look at that, 76. Most albums then were like 37 minutes long or
Yeah,
38. Like, it was
sure.
definitely something more, you know, more original and more unique to come out.
Yeah, absolutely. That is, listen, I gave it a number 4 ranking. However, if I was to give a Ramones album just one for someone and said, this is the only Ramones album you need, it would be that album. Even though I ranked it at number 4, I still would say that's if you're going to have own one album, that first one, because
Yeah,
that album, the debut album of a new sound. Okay, we had gotten away from that garage rock. Rock music got more progressive and experimental. You know, with the late '60s and '70s, a lot of long jams on stage. Bands like the Allman Brothers, Led Zeppelin. You know,
yeah,
they long tunes, guitar solos, this solo, that solo. So even though what the Ramones were doing wasn't totally new, it was a renewal.
yeah,
It's like we're bringing this back, and they stripped it down to its raw essentials. That debut album is a statement. It really is.
yeah,
Maybe I should have made it number 1, but I didn't. But it's a very important album. Very important.
yeah. Very important. And even the expanded edition has demos of a lot of those songs. And to hear how raw or two those songs sounded like, and then even I Can Be is a great song. That's probably my favorite Ramones demo, actually, along with Slug.
Yeah.
I love that song. And I Don't Want to Be Learned, I Don't Want to Be Tamed is another one. And You Should Have Never Have Opened That Door is a demo on here. Like, it's great. And iconic first album and such a, you know, important album in music history. That's my number 2.
My number is Leave Home.
Leave Home. That's awesome.
And you know the reason why it above say Rocket to Russia and even the debut, I think Leave Home is the difference between it and the first album. It's a little bit more in your face,
Yeah.
I think, a little more. Something where it seems like they're playing a little harder with Leave Home. It really, it's like, wow, you got to turn this album up, that type of thing. But we had already talked about it, and again, you know, I love the songs, the production. Like I say, just seems a little harder, you know, but it's definitely essential Ramones. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. And now we're at number one.
Yeah, as we're dwindling on power, we're
dwindling on power at number one. So my number one, of course, if you've been following along and watching this, there's one album I didn't mention yet, and it's my number one. And my number one, of course, is none other than Rocket to Russia.
My number three.
Yeah.
And your number?
And it's my number one. Like I said, I think with this album, they reached like a peak of in songwriting, production, even like the production on this is really great. It's still, it's still raw, but it's more of a cleaner sound, a bit more than the first two. It's like Kiss's Dressed to Kill, still has that rawness, but it's more crisp, more cleaner and crisper, and it's perfect.
That's a good comparison.
Yeah, exactly. And it's both bands' third album.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And and that album cover too to me is just iconic, just like the first album. And album opens up strong, like Cretin Hop. You got Rockaway Beach on here Today, Gone Tomorrow too, which is one of the first Ramones songs actually ever written, because Joey wrote that too, I think on acoustic guitar back in 1969 or 1970 or something. And it's a great song. Locket Love, great song too. I Don't Care is on here, which is my favorite Ramones song of all time. You got Sheena's a Punk Rocker on here. We're a Happy Family.
Yeah.
Lobotomy. Do You Want to Dance? A great cover again. I Want to Be Well. I Can't Give You Anything. Ramona. And Surfin' Bird, which Surfin' Bird is my favorite cover that the Ramones ever did. And
yeah, it's a great version. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun album.
Yep.
But you're right. It's your number one. I mean, for the same reasons that I gave it a number three, it looks like our top five is very, very similar.
Yeah, very similar. Yeah.
Very similar. So that's your number one. My number one, Road to Ruin. That's my personal favorite. And the reason being, it's their fourth album, fourth album. And yes, Marky is the drummer, but is the producer along with Ed Stasium. And I think what Road to Ruin does for me, you have a combination of really hard songs, really hard, rockers, because the presence of Marky, he's such a heavier drummer, harder drummer,
and a more experienced and technical drummer than Tommy was too.
Right, although he's not there to play, do all these kind of dazzling tricks. So he's right there in the pocket. But I also think, in addition to some songs that are harder, they expand a little bit more on the songwriting. Like, again, now here's a cover, but like Needles and Pins, that kind of song. A song like Questioningly. It's a little bit of a different sound, and I think that the album has like both of that in there. It has a nice dynamic. Well, it is all, the first couple albums, like the first two albums, the tracks, each song, they're pretty similar, as you're listening to the album. Rocket to Russia, you can hear the songwriting expanding a little bit. It's got a little bit of a different sound, like you were saying. And then, Road to Ruin, like I say, it's got the hard Ramones, but it's also got, the softer, not softer, but maybe the guitar is a little bit more jangly than, fuzzy, that type of thing. And I like the production overall. So that's pretty much it. That's Road to Ruin. So, we're definitely in agreement on our top five.
Yeah, for sure. Like, that's a great choice. I love Road to Ruin.
Yeah.
And that's both our number ones. We did our Ramones ranking, man.
Yes, and your image frozen, and I hear your voice, so I think you
Oh,
may be
damn. Can
out of
you see me?
power. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I'm
So
down
my
to
number one is Rocket to Russia, and yours is Road to Ruin.
Road to Ruin. Yeah, yeah. So that's interesting. You know, definitely our top five was all there together.
Yeah, very similar and
Yeah.
all there
Well,
together.
it's definitely time for me to say goodbye because I'm getting the 10% and they want my phone. So,
Yeah.
but hey, this was great. I'm glad that we were able to set out and cover what we wanted to cover before we lost power. And looking forward to the next Sunday night chat.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too, Ed. It was great doing this with you again. Thank you very much for that.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. So we'll keep the series going. We'll think about what we want to talk about next.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody that tuned in, and we hope to be with you all again very soon. You all have a good. Take care.
Take care, Ed. See you. Thanks again for this. And again, thank you everyone again for watching. Take care. Have a good night, and God bless. Bye-bye.